Thank you for tuning into White Centipede Noise Podcast. Please hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. This podcast is made possible by viewer and listener support. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider supporting it at patreon.com/White Centipede Noise. White Centipede Noise is a label and mail order based in Germany, releasing top quality noise on tape, CD, and vinyl. White Centipede Noise is also the premier EU-based distributor of international noise. Visit whitecentipedenoise.com to see available label releases and weekly distro updates. Welcome to White Centipede Noise Podcast. My name is Oscar Brummel. Today my guests are the two guys at the heart of the New York City noise scene. Two guys have been doing it for a long, long time. And they're celebrating now their 5th year anniversary of their fantastic shop in Brooklyn. Please welcome Matt Boettke and Justin Lakes of Dead Gods, Shredded Nerve, Scant, Small Mercies, etc., etc. How you guys doing?
Good. We're doing all right.
Did I say your name right, Matt?
Yeah, you did actually. I actually had a little moment where I was like, "Wow, that's correct."
It's Germanish, right? It's German, right?
Kind of? Yes, of course. Yes. So you get it. Yes.
I know how they do the OE thing.
Yeah. It's like an Ellis Island rewrite. Like it's like my name should be like Boettke or something like that. I think that's the proper pronunciation. And then it's like my great grandfather. Whenever he came over, they were like looked at it and they were like, "Fuck now." They're like, "We're changing it." You know? So now they hit us with this weird double vowel thing. So
yeah. Cool. Yeah, it was probably umlauts. It was probably O with 2 dots.
Yeah, I saw it. I saw it once. My dad showed me some like weird crest that like loosely related to his family line, and like he was like, I don't know. It was like kind of anticlimactic. It was a weird moment, but I remember the spelling of it. So
it's always anticlimactic when people show you like the family tree stuff.
Yeah,
it's like
I was like, cool. Were they from New Zealand?
Coming March 12th in Leiden, Netherlands, Charnel Ground presents Crude Transmissions, Festival of Noise and Heavy Electronics, featuring Wince, Coma Cluster, Misère, Knifed Out Existence, Vincent Dallas, Moosehead, Uitgeschakeld, O Retel Retel, Death Mask, and Hernadode. Also screening Tights Worship, Inside of the Practices of the Rita, a film by Sam McKinley. There will be a large White Centipede Noise merch table, as well as from Records and Things and The Tide of the End. March 12th at Resistor in Leiden. 4 o'clock, €8 entry. Cool. Well, so we're going to talk about your shop, Dead Gods. You guys are celebrating 5 years. Mm-hmm. We're going to get into that in a minute, but before we go there, I want to talk a little bit about you guys' background, and also your, music projects. Justin, I've known you for quite a while, like probably 10 or so years.
I think we in 2008 or 9 Milwaukee Noise Fest.
Must be, yeah. And Matt, I don't know if I haven't known you as long, I guess, but you've also been around for a while, and what brought you guys
like 2011 or 2010?
Either 2011 or 10. Whenever you would have come to Buffalo when I was living there before the fest.
Yeah. So Justin, you first maybe can you break down like your whole like just briefly like your kind of location history, because I knew you were like living in Ohio. I think when I first met you, you were involved in Buffalo for a while, like doing Buffalo festivals. I really don't know what that whole progression is or where you're originally from or how you ended up in New York.
Yeah, so I was born in Cincinnati. I moved to Wisconsin when I was a first grader. did a lot of my school there. Then around middle school, moved to Ann Arbor, then moved back to Wisconsin, then moved to Ohio, like right out of high school, and got into noise like right as I was entering Ohio that second time when I was about 18 or 19.
Okay.
And Buffalo would have been 2011 and 12, like the tail end of one year and beginning of the other. I lived there while I was kind of in a band with some guys up there.
How do you end up in Buffalo? Because that's, I guess, not a totally common place to...
Sure, yeah. I know the guys like from Water Torture and Pacing, Matt and Moses. I had come out there a couple of times to play, and each time spent a little more time than the last time, and we just really hit it off. And I didn't really have any sort of commitments in Ohio at the time, and so I just decided to pack up and try it out in Buffalo for a while.
And you were doing a noise project, maybe multiple, but the main one that I'm aware of, you were doing a noise project called Pus Drainer during that time.
Yeah, that's great.
And, I figured that was kind of over, but I also noticed you did a Pus Drainer tape fairly recently on Dead Gods.
Yeah, in like 2018, I think that was.
Yeah, I mean, not so recently, but I was really happy to see just that you hadn't, severed this part of your past, that you were still kind of embracing it. Is that something you're still working with occasionally?
Not so much, but I go back and forth with how I feel about all of the recordings as Pus Drainer, and so I don't know. I try to still just lean into it as much as I can. It's sometimes a little embarrassing to think about like first time doing anything, but yeah, that tape was kind of mostly just trying to sort of celebrate the stupidity of it.
At what point did you start doing Shredded Nerve, and how did that differ really? I mean, it is very different. That's obvious, but how does that differ in your mind? Like, what was your goal in that transition?
Well, I guess part of it was that with Pus Drainer, there just wasn't that much consistency from release to release, and then towards the middle of like 2013 or something like that, I started getting really interested in like 4-track loops through these guys that I was living with in Buffalo who had all this equipment just like mutually in the living room that we were all kind of borrowing each other's stuff. Got really into loops, and then it started to make more consistent output like at home, and just between themes and equipment, it seemed like it was time to do something new.
With Shredded Nerve, there is a strong performative element that I think I saw one of your earliest performances maybe at Milwaukee Noise Fest. I don't know if it was I think you've been doing it for a while, maybe, but oftentimes when I've seen you incorporate a lot of physical acts that are not only performative but also a part of the sound.
Yeah.
You've used water, like your voice. You came to Cologne and played in Germany, and you were using amplified drawing, tape around your mouth. Where does this idea come from to use these sort of physical performative elements in creating the sound?
Well, I guess most of the sounds that I use on the recordings are just things that are around the house, and then certain things get a little more obsessive and refined as I'm doing it, and then some of those end up being like a little more visually interesting, and I'll try to kind of latch onto those for performances just so that there's a reason for it to be a performance over a recording. But
sure, going
to like the Cologne show and all those Europe shows, that was kind of mostly out of like necessity of not trying to bring too much stuff.
Right.
I couldn't. Most of my stuff doesn't really fit very well in travel size cases, and so it was just kind of a fun challenge to bring a small kind of travel rig.
So you're using, like on the recordings, you're using a lot of these techniques at home?
Yeah, definitely. I'm using a lot of stuff that's just sitting around.
And with something like amplified drawing, that has also very symbolic, that's a symbolic image as well. Do your sources and the way you kind of choose these sort of sounds, are they attached to the symbol of the meaning of the code of the object, or is it just kind of more of like what sounds cool and what's available?
I'd say it's more symbolic than even what it sounds like. It's a lot of times it's like something that I found at a job that I'm working at or something that's kind of driving me crazy. And usually if it's like a good marriage of both having personal meaning and being like physically sounding good, that's when I get really excited about something the most. But yeah, all those end up on the recordings.
That's interesting because I notice a lot of your sounds are they're not foreign, but somehow there's sometimes they're kind of like unconventional in their mix. Like, I notice a lot of your recordings are pretty heavy on like the mid-range, scraping, and kind of avoiding, a lot of low-end heaviness. And in my mind, low-end heaviness is oftentimes an easy way to kind of give it some like crowd appeal or something like that. Like low-end is always satisfying, but like mid-range and high-end stuff can be much more challenging and difficult, and uncomfortable.
I think it's like a mixture of the sounds that I find interesting and trying to use the frequency spectrum. Like I'll try to have low end in the recording be like kind of the crescendo of a piece. I don't want it to necessarily go throughout. I want it to be impactful when it happens. So it's kind of this mixture of trying to use it to accent things, and also the sounds I find interesting just kind of happen to mostly fall in that like mid-high range.
What's your approach to composition, just in a general sense? What can you tell me about how you approach these pieces?
I mean, it differs a lot from piece to piece, and it's all kind of guided by what's happening in my life. But I would say that generally I go off of what I'm interested in listening wise at the time. And I think mostly I'm interested in long form narrative, things that are not necessarily like straight up noise, much more than I listen to just straightforward harsh noise. It's not that I don't like that kind of stuff. I just, A, I don't have as much of a voice for that, and B, I think that a lot of people doing it really well. I'm really interested in like artists like Work Death and people that are kind of following this similar narrative arc with their recordings.
You just mentioned an artist, and I've kind of noticed in some way, I get the sense that you do wear your influences kind of on your sleeve in some way. Like when I saw you in Cologne, you had like an Electric Wizard shirt like hanging on your gear. Yeah. I think it seemed like intentional, and like I think you have a Dillaway tattoo, if I'm not mistaken.
Period.
Oh, Period. Okay. Who has a Dillaway tattoo?
I'm not sure.
Someone has a what's that red album cover with that red CD with the Just?
Oh, like Chain Shot.
Yeah, someone has a Chain Shot tattoo. I thought it was you.
Pretty good tattoo, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm mistaken, but anyway, so is that accurate that you are actively and kind of like consciously, not like I don't ever say copying but like sort of referencing and like bringing in other artists that you are inspired by?
Yeah, absolutely. I the Electric Wizard thing. I've had like a long tour with Matt where I had a like typo negative similar situation, like sweatshirt hanging off of my stuff, kind of A, to like keep my stuff from falling off the edge of the keyboard stand, and B, just because it's like my favorite band of all time and I'm proud of it.
What are some other bands that are that you would list as your kind of influences, maybe outside of the noise?
Yeah, I mean, it's mostly like
or within
a lot of noise, but more like things that fall into the like goth category, or like things that are in the black metal realm, like Life Lover, really, really big for me, Typo Negative, Sisters of Mercy, just like all of those kinds of things, I would say, especially in terms of like thematics and what I'm thinking about trying to go into making a piece, like that's where my head is at for the most part. But yeah, also, a lot of noise and experimental that works its way in too, just because that's a huge part of my life.
And when it comes to, you mentioned like you're kind of you're motivated by what's going on in your life at the time, and a lot of your titles and things have very emotionally charged, content or imagery. Is that usually like a direct reference to your personal life, or is it sometimes like an observational thing as a third party?
It's mostly directly in my life, even if it's not like a direct reference or an obscured reference. But yeah, I mostly try to just convey what's going on in my life and what I have experienced.
What about some of your other projects? I mean, Laps, for example.
In terms of like the theme.
Well, tell me what Laps is about. Tell me what Laps is versus Shredded Nerve, for example.
So Laps is all one sound source. It's all like wire on metal, and it's definitely more trying to stay in the harsh lane and kind of keep some of the sounds separate. I had found myself really falling into these same sounds when trying to record for Shredded Nerve, and it just didn't really make a lot of sense at the time, and I tried to just separate the two entirely and focus on that for Laps. But yeah, Laps thematically is not quite as influenced by personal life or those same influences of like goth and black metal.
With the goth and black metal references and kind of text, don't take this wrong, but is it ever like tongue in cheek for you a little bit? Kind of like album like titles or track titles or imagery,
No, because of the connection to like my life and what it means to me. It's not really. I can understand how to others it could be, and that's fine. I know that going into it, but yeah, it's all pretty like heartfelt and things that resonate pretty deeply.
Cool. This episode of White Centipede Noise Podcast is brought to you by Flag Day Recordings. Flag Day Recordings is a tape and CD-based label out of Pennsylvania, focused on promoting harsh noise, avant-garde, musique concrète, electroacoustic, and ambient artists. Upcoming artists to look forward to are Ted Burns, Francisco Marino and Bob Bellarue, Dave Phillips, Spore Spawn, Final Machine, Our Wrongs, and Neural. Visit flagdayrecordings.bigcartel.com. Matt, you're known for your project Scant. Are there other projects, solo projects of yours that people might not be aware of that you're also heavily involved in?
Not solo. Scant really has always been the solo thing that I've done. I played music with a lot of people. So what ended up happening was I had this project, Sex Complex, for years. That was me and this person, Lindsay Chapman, who is from Virginia, where I'm from, and a lot of our friends. Me and her were the core of it, but basically, there were so many iterations of the band that all involve anyone that we hung out with at the time, and that was really rewarding. But I kept on trying to control aspects of the output, because it was primarily my thing, but I was doing it with my friends, and over time it's I was in charge of all the editing. I'd come up with titles for things, people would talk to me about plugins and things like that, and I wanted to keep doing that, but I realized that was kind of an inefficient way to channel the level of obsessive control I wanted over sound. And after doing that for about 2 years, I realized that there just had to be a just me thing, and I kind of that's just what I've done since then. I did something at the end of 2011, and I've just it's pretty much just been Scant in terms of solo stuff. I, for a little period of time, recorded music under my own name. I did one tape at the end of college. It was all synth stuff, but it just sounded like a Scant tape that wasn't called Scant. So I don't know. The Scant just is essentially a euphemism for me. So.
And you mentioned being from Virginia. So before we get a little deeper into Scant, what's your background, and how did you guys meet, first of all?
I met because Shane Church, Hostage Pageant, was involved in this kind of anonymous black metal noise collective thing that me and some of my friend from high school and other friends back from Fairfax, Virginia, which is outside of DC. It's about 30 minutes outside of DC, so the DC metro area for it's simpler, but all the shows happened in Fairfax because we had a show house there. So it's its own thing. It's Fairfax. I had a scene once upon a time. It even predates my involvement in it. But I was at Shane Church's house, which is down in Southern Virginia. And he literally told me that I should meet Justin. Like, he literally was like, you met that pus trainer kid yet? He's like, the two of you would just get along or something like that. And he actually suggested that I reach out to Justin on MySpace. This didn't end up happening, but he had suggested I reach out to Justin and try and book him in Fairfax, said that I probably could get pus trainer set for just an eighth of weed. So that sounded all right to me, but that didn't end up actually happening. Instead, I met him at SummerScum 1. Is that where we met for the first time, or did we meet before then?
I think you and Angel and Cincinnati C maybe came through Buffalo before that.
Yeah, I can't remember whether that was before or after, but yeah, we definitely met in Buffalo.
So Justin, you were already doing the SummerScum thing.
It either was about 6 months before or after, and I can't remember. For some reason, I think that I met Matt probably about 6 months before we did the first SummerScum, because I think that was the second time I met.
Yeah, it doesn't sound right that SummerScum would have been the first time we met. Yeah. I felt like I was excited to hang with the crew at SummerScum.
Yeah, I think that when you all sat at our house, that was the first time we ever had gotten to know each other.
Yeah, me and my friend Angel, who she runs Rainbow Bridge Recordings, she was essentially my first real friend in noise. Me and her did everything together when I was first getting into it. She was already into it. I met her because we were in bands that went on tour together, because we were in tangentially related to noise bands. You remember that mid-late 2000s style where they were definitively bands. They kind of had something to do with noise. Noise could be on the bill, but truly not noise, not even part of noise, part of the world of bands. So we were into those that kind of had these screamo-ish post-rock overtones, but kind of had noise or whatever. And because we had gone on this tour, it was a short tour because we had gone on it together, I started to watch her online presence that was all about noise, and I started to be like, whoa, this is way cooler than what we know each other from. And she definitely had a head start and was already into it by the time I came around to being fully into it. But hanging out at her parents' house, literally, she was through such a short period of time, she blew my mind, showed me so much stuff, and life has honestly not been the same since. So
cool. That life-changing friend.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. Okay, so when you started doing Scant, was that quite different from the band you were in before? You called it a band, but was it it wasn't like a rock band?
No, Sex Complex was noise, and Sex Complex sounds like Scant for sure.
Yeah, okay.
I actually am going to be... there's going to be a reissue of the Sex Complex material, and listening back to it, it's actually kind of cool to be like, wow, so I just really had one idea, huh? You know what I mean? It's just this was the idea, and I just, little here and there, but that's the idea, right?
That's cool, though. Yeah, so Scant is decidedly minimal. It's definitely more minimal than, for example, Tread a Nerve. It's totally different world, totally different approach.
Absolutely.
What is your you call it an idea. What is your idea behind Scant? What is your philosophy? What is your driving?
So in the very beginning of doing the Scant stuff, I had seen Richard Ramirez, I had seen Black Colored Jesus, and I especially seen The Haters, and I couldn't I couldn't get over how much they did with so little. So at first I kind of took a gear related approach of trying to be I only use 3 channels. I remember one time actually sitting in Justin's old apartment explaining to Matt Goodrich, who does Deceiver and was in those bands Water Torture and Pacing, I was I'll never record something without with more than 3 channels or something like that. And I really was trying to think of it that way. I later I basically Scant for me is like, I mentioned I was in these bands and all this stuff, like kind of like, maybe like screamo, post-rock type stuff, related stuff. And Scant has really become the way for me to have like my version of essentially a band like that, like in noise. Mm-hmm. So really the like philosophy that goes behind it is that, similar to Justin, I take something from my own life, like my own personal life, that is like really, really consuming me. I have really obsessive thoughts to detrimental degrees, actually. And I just really try and like hone in on something, and I will record layer after layer, kind of like in the spirit of that. And I'll try and craft something that just like sums up being consumed by whatever that thought or feeling is. And like, I'll try and like document it almost as like a anchor back to reality to like find my way back home. You know what I mean? Like, I just like, I leave all the breadcrumbs of like, this is your life. Like, you cared about these things. So that's like where like all the titles go in. A lot of them relate to the concept of association in general, just because it's like very much like a in your head type thing. They're all supposed to essentially induce some type of dissociative state. They're all, I'm just trying to like share like that, like just like that trapped in my own thoughts. I'm just trying to document it somewhere, or else, then I'm just left with it myself. So what good does that do? So.
And are you in some way trying to recreate the experience that you're experiencing in that state?
Yeah, for sure. I definitely want, like, if anything, like, I don't know, like, it's like something that meant so much to me is that the connection I felt to noise. I've always felt really, really connected to music. It's like been my only interest basically my whole life. When I was in these bands and stuff, obviously that was really important to me, but basically none of them were very good. Like, that's like part of like why I got into noise. Like I couldn't like reference you or like show you something and it'd be like, oh shit, like he was the dude from that band. Like, that isn't out there. Like, you could like check my old band's material. It's very mid. It's just like, it's pretty good, and like it might be all right to be like, oh wow, like I played in a little band too, but it's like, it's not worth showing. And it's like, I don't know, it's just, I didn't accomplish it, you know what I mean? But so many bands and other artists and noise that I liked, what meant so much to me is I listened to it and like I'd get it. And then with noise, I would meet people and I'd be like, holy shit, like I'd be like, they're like me in some way, or like this is like, the thing that like bonds like punks or like metalheads together, like community. Like, holy shit, like these people that make this music have similar thoughts and like set of ethos as me. Like, here I am. Like, I found myself like in this record, which is like, the most romantic view of rock and roll, but it's happening in noise. So yeah, I try and like weave a little bit of my personal experience, because I mean, the one thing I want is like, if like one kid sitting like in the throes of like whatever walls he's constructed for himself or herself or their self, whatever type of like obsessive awful life they've drummed themselves into, if they could like possibly hear some Scant thing or interact with any type of Scant artwork and be like, it's me or something like that. Like, that's like it meant so much to me to find those hands extended out to me, that if I can just leave mine out and just like literally anyone finds it or grabs it, then I've accomplished my goal here, because that's really, I just want like a meaningful contribution to the things that were meaningful to me.
Yeah. And kind of jumping a bit to the store now, Rand, because of what you said, you run this space, you guys run this space together, which we're going to talk about, but through that physical space, are you able to connect? Have you been able to connect with certain people that have, had some sort of experience with your music and talk to them on a personal level about it, or use that space to kind of, make and nourish those connections?
Yeah,
definitely.
If we, if that didn't happen, we wouldn't have put up with so much of the bullshit that we put up to view it there. Between COVID and also, not to get too into it, but like we had at one point had a switch of a landlord, for lack of a better term, that essentially really looked like the store should have closed and we should have been out of there. And we had to deal with a lot of loopholes and jumping over a lot of obstacles. And
we still do.
Yeah, we still do, certainly to a degree. And if we weren't meeting people or hadn't met people throughout that process that meant, that like clearly we're affected by it, we would have no will to keep doing it, because it's, especially with COVID and, where our store is essentially outside with like the winters here in New York. Yeah. It's like, it can get it can get a little less than ideal down there, but
gas powered, we have propane heat. It's really wild, so it can be really dispiriting a lot of the time, but those kind of interactions really make it worth it.
This episode of White Centipede Noise Podcast is brought to you by New Forces. 4 new cassettes are now available from New Forces. Primitive and Raw Noise from Barstool Mountain, a new project from the man behind Altar of Flies. Sleazy and Dynamic Harsh Noise from Moosehead. An unreleased 1998 recording from Canadian master Neural, and Wild Saxophone Noise from the Norwegian duo Maranata. Visit newforces.bigcartel.com to purchase. All orders include the 12th issue of the New Forces zine for free. Stay tuned for upcoming releases from Organ of Cordy, Skin Crime, Hands 2, Testicle Hazard, Shredded Nerve, Kyle Flanagan, and much more. Happy anniversary to Thousands of Dead Gods.
Wow. So let's then jump into the shop. Dead Gods, I've been there, but describe the shop for those who don't know what it is, where it is, what it's like.
There's a concept here in Brooklyn, Punk Alley. It's located at 867 Broadway. It predates us by years, but we interacted with it as just patrons of some of the businesses down there. So the idea is that the Bushwick Flea Market, which was once a collection of storefronts built into shipping containers, was eventually and slowly over time basically rented out to comparable businesses like Street Fever, Ignore Rock and Roll Heroes, Better Red Than Dead, Dripper World, of course. And what am I missing? Video Eye. Yeah, Video Eye and Rebel Rouser, which are all various like punk themed businesses. And sometime in the winter of 2017, we became aware that one of the units, one of the small ones, was going to be open. We had the idea to get in there because our friends who ran a label called Primitive Languages did a small store there for one summer that like Justin recorded in. What else did you do there? You interact with Primitive Languages more than me.
I just went there and helped people like dub tapes and hung out mostly, but yeah, I recorded in there with Nick once. But we just visited the alley a lot. I would go into Dripper World also, buy like Christmas gifts for people. We were definitely like patrons of the alley and already aware of the concept and everything like that. And then, once we learned that there was a unit that was going to be available, our heads kind of started spinning and thinking about like what we could do with it.
How long had you guys been in New York City living there before that came about?
Well, I had been here since like Halloween of 2014, and then the store, so I guess about like 3 years I had been here.
Okay.
I was pretty much brand new. I spent a lot of time in New York with people like Justin up here. I was living in Philly prior. I got in a now resolved fight with my dear friend Rachel. Luckily, that's all good. Shouts out Rachel if you're watching this. I moved and I lived on Justin's floor at first, then very quickly was ushered into 538 Johnson, which is the DIY space I live at still today. It basically was like, it was in that zone where it was like, damn, what's New York going to be like? And right. Where am I going to get a job? Like I had just got a job. I just had somewhere to stay. And then boom, this concept just, we were talking about booking shows together, maybe starting a label together. Like we had done stuff together, we had toured together and all this, and we wanted to work on stuff together. And we were like, we were trying to come up with ideas, and then it
snowballed really quickly.
Yeah. This just eclipsed the entire list. Like this was like, wow, now that's an idea.
Was it premeditated, or was it something that kind of just came out of opportunity? Like, oh fuck, here's a space.
There was
let's fucking start.
There was, I would say, simultaneous subconscious awareness of the fact that the space was going to be open, but then we were also already working on all these things, like talking about booking shows, a label, and there was we went and visited my family in Ohio for Christmas, and it's a 12-hour drive, and I remember the drive there, talking about it really loosely, and then the drive back was really we were making a list of we'll get in touch with these people, we'll get tapes from these people, and it really kind of coalesced really quickly. And once we knew that we were going to be able to get into the space, that's when it got pretty good.
Cool. Was there a specific motivation to starting a shop versus a venue, for example?
So for me and for Justin too, I think, for Justin too, I know, we had both been involved in all kinds of various DIY endeavors. I was part of this RVA Noise Collective when I lived in Richmond, Virginia, that booked a lot of shows, mainly with my buddy Gary Stevens, who's been booking down there for decades. Honestly, he lived at the Rat Ward, which is that famous video of Eugenics Council blowing a bomb up and blowing a hole through the roof of an apartment. That was Gary's apartment. So I did stuff with him, and he was that classic older head who put me onto all kinds of lore and just made the whole thing all more real for me by telling me stories about I don't know, talking to Dom Furnow on AIM and stuff like that, and I was like, wow, and we had been involved, Justin booked all the shows in Cincinnati, and I had played Cincinnati many times, Justin had played Richmond many times, and I had been involved in this space auxiliary that was below this gallery Sediment Arts that Gary was tattooing out of, and that meant a lot to the Richmond community. And from that experience, I realized that any type of real establishment had so much more impact than just a thing to make money off of or an ability to get tapes in people's hands. It's that it makes it real. If there's an address to send mail to, if there's a place you can put in maps and you can go there, then it's you aren't just dicking around on the internet or talking to your little friends. You know what I mean? It's right. There's what you're doing is it can be real, and you can make it real in various ways. So it's obviously it's just a little record store, and of course we get a lot of tapes out to people, but I'd hope that the bigger impact is that I don't know, maybe some kids in some other ideally little shitty town where we come from, maybe they open their thing, or maybe they start booking shows under their name, or maybe they have their warehouse spot they open up, and then it's because honestly, I don't know what my life would be like if I hadn't interacted with all the various versions of that. I think empty, and I was I love noise and I love music, but before really being involved in stuff, I had a very I'd say bleak existence. I I was not prior to really finding the noise community. My life was I'd say even at risk because of the type of lifestyle that I had. Not to be dramatic, I don't even think that this is now past the point I would have been had I not found that. So
and and I think also in terms of the store specifically, we both had talked so much about the impact of going to places and seeing noise releases that you could only see on the internet, in real life, going into hospital or APOP for the first time, seeing an 8-Tracks Morgue CD in real life versus seeing a shitty YouTube video of it. It's really, I don't know, we both reference that all the time and how much it changed our lives. So I don't know, we really just wanted to do something like that with our own lives.
When you started this, what kind of activity was going on in New York City at the time? Because I know I don't know, 10 plus years ago when I was living in Minneapolis and did a couple tours, we always went east, but New York City was always like the bunkest place. Like it was always like, fuck, there's nothing going on in New York City. Like there was red light district in Far Rockaway. That was sick, but the city itself, there was really nothing going on. And now it's a totally different story from what I,
It's
can observe. What was going on when you arrived before you guys opened the store?
well, there's a lot more happening now. In just kind of serendipitously, a lot of people have relocated here that we've known from other cities. There's been a lot of people that have like started making noise out here that we weren't aware of, or that I think weren't making noise before. But yeah, in like 2017, there wasn't really a ton. There's a lot of cool music happening, but in terms of like noise, there wasn't really that much. It was kind of challenging to book shows and not have the same like 4 people open them and have them make any sort of sense. There's a few, like Rockaway has held it down forever. They've had Red Light out there. They've kind of always been like the oasis in the desert out here in terms of like having somewhere fun to play and people that are going to be cool to watch play. But the Maps guys have been doing things. It's like a different focus. They're more into like power electronics and industrial, but they were kind of doing things, but that had kind of seemed to like not be as frequent. There was like Margaret Chartier doing Pharmacon and a lot of stuff that was on the like really industrial power electronic side of thing, but not too much in terms of like harsh noise or any sort of the subgenres that branch out from that.
Do you feel like your shop has kickstarted a lot of what exists as the scene now?
Like I said, I think a lot of it is just really good circumstances in terms of people that have moved here, but I think the shop definitely helps just in terms of people having a place to get together and talk about things and get each other excited. I'd like to think
You're humble.
The shop is definitely, I'd say, like part of a multifaceted equation where it's like we definitely are contributing to it, but kind of what makes New York, especially recently, COVID notwithstanding, but is like that there's so many little pieces of the equation. Like there's all these people that are in all kinds of different micro scenes of noise, and a lot of them actually go to a lot of each other's shows. Just last night, we saw Cuban Secret Boyfriend. Those are like we've played Savage Weekend, which is the fest that Rymar and Secret Boyfriend books. But, that is like slightly a different wheelhouse than like the stuff we do. Not too different, but, it's like slightly different. And like there's all kinds of variations that are like slightly different, be it like people that are maybe more on like the techno side or the more free improv side or, just like little different micro scenes. And the cross support of all of these things kind of make it so that there's a big audience at a lot of these shows, which is really, really encouraging for artists to play here. And yeah, it just it makes the shows much more viable. Like last night, I saw a lot of people that I haven't seen in a long time, and they were all just there for the same thing, just literally to watch these. So It was a great feeling. It felt great.
You've spoke about this a little bit already, Matt, but what is the importance of a physical space in this kind of like underground scene? Like what role does that actually play?
It's definitely like the tangibility of it. Like it's like the fact that you can go there and then you can project your aspirations on it. Like I remember coming to New York and the people at Heaven Street Material World stocking some of my tapes. And then when I got home, seeing their post to say that my tapes were in the store. And that like just was like, oh, wow, like my tapes are in a record store. And it's like, truthfully, it's like, what are we talking about? They took 3 copies of the tape. I know for a fact that the owner took one because, he's always been a supporter of mine. And it's just that like, so like 2 people got to buy the tapes in the store or something like that. But like more so than that, I, as someone living somewhere not as cool as New York City, got to see my name on a post from a record store in New York City. And you damn well know that meant that was inspiring to do things in Richmond, Virginia. As I'm like, wow, like I can sell 2 tapes in New York. Like, I got, whoa, like.
I think just like having a place for people to get together and like talk about what's happening in the moment, you know, especially during COVID. There's like some of the only social interactions I've had have been people coming to the store and talking about, you know, all the CDs that came out in 2020 or like whatever scandal is going on. And it's just, you know, it makes it real because you can sit there and like talk to people and pick things up, and it's cool.
Yeah. On a daily basis, like, are there people coming through? I mean, I know you guys aren't open every single day, but you're up on the weekends, right?
On the weekends, yeah.
Say on a Saturday, how many people are coming through the shop? Like, is it a busy full day every time, or is it just, you know, maybe a couple of the regulars?
It's different. You know, it's really circumstantial. It's like he said before, we're like outside, so weather plays a part in it. Shows happening plays a part in it. But yeah, it's sometimes you think there's going to be no one coming in, and it ends up being like a really busy day. Some days it's just your friends, and some days it's like no one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some people, it's like, it's also really surprising because sometimes you think that people just wander in and then you're like, don't want to disappoint them, where you're like, oh no, this isn't a record store. It's actually very bizarre. There's this whole concept where people record this music that's mostly unlistenable and then they sell it and they put this art to it. And it's like, you don't want to explain that to anyone. But sometimes it's cool that people come in and I think that they're there by accident and they're there hella intentionally. For example, I tried to explain to Pierre Marc that we didn't sell metal there. And he turned around and he was like, is this not Thousands of Dead Gods? Like, you know, like, and he was totally there just like so intentionally because he was playing a show in town. But I, you know, sized him up wrong and was like, oh, this guy probably thinks we sell black metal here. But it's like, nope, he knew exactly where he was. He was there to buy stuff from me and, you know, patronize my business. And here I was being like nervous he was in the wrong place.
Yeah. There's a lot of variations of that kind of experience for sure, of like somebody that you think is lost and then they're really pointedly there. We had somebody come in like last summer wearing like salmon shorts and like a polo, and we were like really getting ready to tell this person like, oh, like we don't actually have any like rock and roll records, and he's like, oh, breakdancing Ronald Reagan, nice. But, you know, it's you meet a lot of really wild characters doing this, being just like on the street on Broadway.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are in a really populated area and definitely a vibrant area. Do you think that your store has exposed people to noise that would otherwise, you know, or gained, not just exposed them, but like brought in fans that would have otherwise not had any sort of ability to learn about it or connect to it?
I think so. I hope so. I think if anything, we've at least met people who have been like mildly aware of something and helped maybe coax them into being like bigger fans or get more excited about things or show them things that they didn't know about, but that they would have probably found on their own eventually.
Yeah, we've got a few people that come to us for recommendations, so that seems to be accurate that that's happening, because there's definitely a few people that they come in the store and they essentially want to hear what we suggest to them. So that seems to be evident that, you know, people are being exposed to things on the large. A lot of times when people come to the store, they do know exactly what they want though. So a lot of people come, they're hunting for a specific item that they saw that we had, and they're just beelining to the store to make sure that they buy it before someone else does.
Sure. In what you talked about, Matt, about like the importance of the, you know, the connections with people in your music and that store, you know, what kind of social interactions are going on there? I mean, of course, there are people coming to buy stuff. You mentioned people are sometimes beelining directly for, you know, the stuff that they know is going to be gone right away. But I mean, as far as the people that spend some time there, what kind of sessions go on there?
Well, so we definitely a definitely reoccurring thing is that some of like our core friend group, definitely that's like the go-to meeting spot. We meet like up with like Stefan over there, Kyle Flanagan's over there, you know, people that like we've worked with a lot of times and are just like very obvious names. Like they live in New York, they all release on each other's labels. Like clearly these people are friends with one another. So it's definitely like our go-to meeting spot for stuff like that. our friends Sammy and Eric hang out all the time. Sammy that does Parasite Nurse and Eric that does Stress Orphan. They used to live together down the street. So it's like definitely we have like a small little neighborhood crew. We interact with some people from Myrtle Broadway, which is the area that we're at. That's our train stop in general. For example, our old pot dealer, Ali Mike, is a guy who I don't even know if he fully understands what noise is still. Like, he maybe understands that we sell noise music, but he's definitely, this is the first time he's ever heard it in any context of his life. And very unfortunately, we recently lost one of our main interactions, which was this guy, Richie, who is a staple of the neighborhood, who always played Van Halen and Guns N' Roses and old school hip hop out of this huge speaker on the corner. He very, very unfortunately recently passed away. But yeah, a lot of times me and Justin would just be sitting there and it would be with that guy. That is, that he became our dear friend over the past 5 years. And honestly, I was hoping and, taking this opportunity to slip in a huge rest in peace, Richie. We love him. We miss him. We are going to utilize him in some way. Yet to be seen, but I honestly couldn't even open my mouth in any conversation with anyone today and not slip a rest in peace, Richie.
Rest in peace, Richie, for sure.
Rest in peace. God bless Richie. Damn. Do things ever get hairy in there? Like, you ever had any like fucked up situations there? I mean, I know. So
Richie has pulled guns on us, ice picks, and even grenade. So that's for starters.
Real guns?
Yes, these are all real things. There is no exaggeration here.
We recently had a guy come in, try to convince us to turn the store into an NFT, and then started smoking crack openly. Yeah, we get into some really weird scenarios over there for sure.
Openly but discreetly. It was actually possibly the smoothest inclusion of casual crack I've ever seen in my entire life. This man had his shit loaded and he just rocked like the smallest little, he blasted so fast and he blew it out the open door, and I kind of almost didn't believe it had really happened, but it happened. I saw the torch, I saw the rose stem. It was kind of broken, like like one should be. And it's he did that, and he just kept on with conversation, and was stuck in this really weird moment where I was like, my instincts were like, say something, but then I was like, is it not okay to smoke crack and dead gods? Like, I was like, it's I'm not especially for some of the younger people that come in the store, I'm not encouraging it, but truly it's I wouldn't say it's a
You're not
allowed.
Yeah, it's not a no. It's not a yes either, but it's not a no. I mean, it's not my no to say. So yeah, he bought Magma for grind from us.
Yeah,
loved it.
Was he like was he like a noise head, or was he just a dude smoking crack who just happened to buy this CD?
Art guy smokes crack. We got him on the
Loved it, actually. He had insightful things to say about listening to it though, in a subsequent interaction. He really listened, liked it. So, cool. Not to stereotype the band, but complimentary listening material for those activities. Evidence says yes.
Oh, great. Okay. So you mentioned COVID being like a really big hurdle for the shop. What was that? What have these past few years been like dealing with that?
I mean, it's been like different phases. Probably 5 days before the first lockdown, we had the Richard Ramirez, Black Leather Jesus, Vamir, Rita show here. And that was like probably our all-time like best attended show. Had a lot of plans going into that year that all just kind of, everybody's plans just immediately got shut down. And then we were closed for like 3 months, and then we reopened for a couple months, and then we closed again, and then we reopened and then closed again. And we're just kind of navigating it based on like cases and all the different twists. But yeah, it's been challenging to know what the right move is in a lot of different situations, trying to keep things moving.
Are you guys able to make it like self-sustaining at least in terms of like paying the rent?
Yeah.
And
people's
cool.
support has been great. Thank you for anyone that shops with us that's listening to this. Y'all have definitely kept it afloat. It's been, it's meant something for sure. People don't want to let us, people don't want to see us go away. So, and they've acted in accordance to that. So we appreciate it for sure.
Yeah. Outside of, COVID exceptions, what is your ratio of like sales online versus sales in the shop roughly?
So it's definitely important to note that all record stores are going to fall into this, but mail order is a little more significant than in-store sales. People that come in the store usually spend more per purchase because they've made an occasion of coming to the store. But we're doing a healthy amount of online business just like anyone else is, and that's pretty helpful because there's more names that can actually get to the store. So I mean, I knew I was excited when I received something like from hospital per se to like my parents' house, and like it just even had that label on it. Like I'd go, like it was almost as good as going there. And I never even actually got to step foot in there. I went there towards the very end of it, and Richard Dunn, FFH, was working that day doing some stuff in the stockroom, came out, told me the store wasn't open, but that I could buy White Eye winter watching. I had so much cash in my pocket. I was like a kid from the suburbs, and I was like so ready to just blow all the stupid money I made working at Wegmans or wherever the fuck I worked at the time on Hospital Productions. And I was like, White Eye winter watching comp, great comp, of course. But it's like, I had just seen an Enzevalia the night before, like Noise, Pilot Chonks was so fucking real to me in this moment. Then I show up to the store and I got FFH hit me with nah. So, had I not been able to order mail order, hospital would have been a wash for me. And seeing as how me and Justin actually have matching period tattoos, that part was a little clogged earlier. Clearly, that man's work has meant a lot to me. So if I hadn't been able to order it in the mail, would it have meant so much? It certainly meant a fucking lot, I'll tell you that.
We have really really loyal recurring customers from all over too, and that's like another thing is like we've gotten into some of these relationships with people where I feel like I know them and we've never actually met in person, but just based on knowing someone's personal taste from the other side of the world, I don't know, it's really cool. We get a lot of support from everyone all over.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, you can well know that you guys are the Hospital production store of this era. Hospital was legendary for people who went there during that time. I was there once or twice, I think, in the basement. It was so memorable.
I mean, I'll never forget going in that place. It's like part of the magic,
Yeah, and you guys are carrying that torch. For real. You mentioned the struggles it's had and the importance of these spaces. What do you think would happen to the scene at large if spaces like yours cease to exist? Or for example, you guys close down. What do you think? What kind of effect would that have on a wider scale?
It wouldn't like obviously we'll close eventually, but the question that you're asking, I just don't believe will ever happen. Some kids are gonna pick up a version of this, and they're like young people are going to recreate this scenario over and over and over and over again. And even if it seems like there's times, especially if you pay too close attention to the discourse of older people that try and make it like, oh, things are changing or things are getting worse. Like that isn't the reality at all. Things are actually always changing and always getting better. And even if it's not by your standards, it's by their standards. So if a group of kids get together and decide what their definition of noise is, they're probably right. I still have mine, but like theirs will grow stronger and get better. And like, that's just what's going to happen infinitely. And even if they want to change the definition of what noise is, they'll be right if they're together and doing it, and they're going to create some version of it.
Right on. in this modern era with the reach of social media and, you know, spots like yours in big cities like New York, do you see noise having the potential to grow beyond kind of this? There's this kind of rigid mentality that, you know, tapes are limited to 100, CDs are limited to 300, you know, maybe 500, maybe, you know, like there's this kind of set amount of people in some of our minds, I think, that are potentially interested in noise. But do you think that, I mean, this is something I've been thinking about lately because, you know, I've always kind of shit on social media, like, oh, this is so terrible, blah, blah, blah. But someone also brought up the fact that it actually has the potential to reach people, way, way more people that could very, very well have a strong resonance with noise music and noise culture and et cetera, that just never would have had the chance before. And I think that's happening already. I mean, it'd be hard to know started to know numbers, and, you know, there's micro scenes, but do you think there's possibility through these things to, you know, expand, even redefine, like you were talking about, you know, young kids, the new generation taking on their definition of what noise is. Do you think that's happening?
Yeah. It's happening for sure. I think of sometimes events of the past, like the mid 2000s, like glory era of noise, like post Wolf Eyes boom, or however you want to classify it, like where noise was slightly viable in like the indie underground for a hot second. And I think about like legendary shows that I think of, and I'm only kind of now really wrapping my head around the concept that I've probably been to, played, or even possibly thrown shows that were as attended or, you know, as big as those shows. Like in my mind, like it's like I'm always like the little kid, like just like, I wish I did this, I wish I was there, I wish I saw Incapacitants. But like there's probably some kid that wishes they saw the Rita in my fucking kitchen. So, you know, I don't know what that mindset is, because it's not like the people that went to No Fun knew that I was sitting in my parents' house wishing I saw Incapacitants. You know what I mean? So I don't know what's out there. I just see little evidence of it cropping up, and every time it's like, oh wow, and like sometimes something crops up and I'm just like, oh damn, like, you know.
I think it's exciting. I think it's worth pushing. I think, you know, this mentality of, you know, for the select few, I think even in my own head, I need to, you know, delete that.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it's happening too. You know, we're meeting new people like all the time, and they're getting younger and younger, and they have all very different definitions of like what noise means to them or how they got into it. It's cool to see.
Definitely. So you guys also run a label out of the shop. How do you guys split up like workload and responsibilities with that? Who does what there? How does that process work? Because I'm always curious about how people run a label with two people, because that's always had in my opinion, the potential to be really fruitful and helpful, but also have difficulties. You know, just anytime you're doing something like that with another person, there's things to work out. How do you guys do that?
Well, I mean, we end up having to both agree on everything to proceed, I think, is probably like the main component. I don't know if you...
Yeah. Justin has a lot to say here. I'll just say real quick. I'm not a visual artist really per se, and Justin is. So a lot of times I feel like what you're talking about with like the two heads butting or whatever, that would maybe happen more if I had like it's like we kind of like have like a split in our personalities that is very complementary towards working together, where there's certain things that either of us either care to do or are like excel at doing that the other one either doesn't care so much about doing, or like, you know, it's truly both of us are very good at both sides of the equation, because we've done it for 5 years now, and we've really have a whole practice. We have a whole system of how we do things. We're actually going to be getting to work on some things immediately after this. We have a place we get tapes at. We have like Justin's house to work at. But Justin does the lion's share of the tape label process, because the artwork being obviously such a focal point of what we have to do, that's all Justin. And, you know, that's I'm happy for it to be all Justin because he's as everyone knows, he's got a lot of ideas in that regard between Dead Gods and also the Small Mercies disc that he whips up as well. So yeah, that's definitely a Justin question.
Okay.
In terms of like the tape label, I would say we look, at least in terms of what we put out, it's very much like a conversation between both of us always of like what we like. We always have to both be excited about doing it. We both have to like I might think some artwork is great, but if Matt thinks it's stupid, like we're not going to do it, so having the like checks and balance of, we have a really singular like end objective. And so like, I don't know, sometimes that can be a little blinding, and it's like helpful to have another person around to, give you some perspective.
Are you guys pretty like honest and critical with each other about things?
Yes.
Yeah.
Too much.
This is my best fucking friend in the world. That's not an easy thing to accomplish.
No, it isn't. That isn't. I mean, in any relationship or in art, in noise music, I think that's hard. That's missing sometimes. I think is honest feedback from your friends or peers. I think it's easier to go like, yeah, sick, like whatever, than to.
No, that's not easy, actually.
It's not easier, but I mean, it's the path of least resistance, which leads to problems, I think. But yeah, so okay, cool.
We have no problem being really, really open and honest with each other about everything.
And Matt, I kind of get the sense you're more of you're like the businessman.
I would say that when he first started out, it definitely was like a little more split in those regards. But like 5 years of doing something, like it's like we our skills have moved towards the middle as we've shared so much of the workload and experience. And it's like, so I went to school for nonprofit marketing. I used to be involved in this gallery space, and I've like done like various jobs. So like I do have that background bringing in. I worked as like the sales manager of this natural foods company run by incredible noise artist John Mannion of the phenomenal Beats and LP fame, and also Zoe Wardlaw, who plays in Zozo with John currently, which is like insane IDM stuff. If anyone Google Zozo if anyone's curious, either to A, what John Mannion's been up to, or B, if they just need something else besides Aphex Twin, Boards of Canada, or Outtaker to listen to. It's insane, but definitely Google it.
Z-O-Z-O?
Yeah. Z-O-Z-O, yeah, Zozo.
Cool.
They have music videos, they have an EP on streaming services, and they have a new video actually premiering depending on when this podcast comes out. It's February 22nd. So yeah, Mannion's LP on Hanson, fucking phenomenal. Sorry, I just got a side to this. A masterpiece work of art. So check out Zozo, please.
Cool.
But it's insane and good. But yeah, so I definitely have like a little more business mind in me. But you're
also a better communicator.
I like to talk. Maybe that's a little, but it's definitely moving towards the middle, just because we've done this now for a second, and it's if we weren't able to trust each other with getting the jobs done, then it's like, we probably would have, life is especially up here in New York, can get real fucking busy. Like if there isn't someone that you can just like text to be like, do this, like I need you to do this exactly the way that we do it, you know what I mean? Like if you don't have that, a lot of times sometimes missed opportunity. But it's like, I feel personally, both of us are fortunate enough that it's like, oh damn, like something needs to get done. Can we both do it? Can one of us do it? Someone's gonna do it. You know what I mean? Like we're not gonna leave things undone. So.
And we're like still refining the process of it. Like now, like even like 2 weeks ago, we've made different like dedications to like, okay, on this day this week we'll do these things. On this day this week we'll do these things. This is how the order of operations for this week. It especially with COVID and everything changing, we've just had to be really able to trust each other and be able to be really frank about things. And so, it's the process is always like getting a little easier and better.
That's great. I mean, that's really great to see, because I know, as an outsider, not knowing, I mean, it's like sometimes I'll talk to Matt, sometimes I'll talk to Justin, and in my mind I've always thought, oh, that'd be terrible if like this label somehow tears these guys apart or something. Like you always think about these kind of things, that they can also be very strainful on friendships, and people can go their separate ways because of things. But it sounds like you guys are really like peanut butter and jelly, and that's what it seems like it always has been. And I'm glad I got you guys both to come on, because I didn't know if you guys are sick of always being asked on as a group, and having to talk as a group and being kind of put together. But I think you guys are such a great team. It's like it would be kind of a shame not to have you guys both able to talk about these things at the same time, because I see you guys are just an awesome team.
I mean, I think that we would probably be more likely to tear the label apart than the friendship. We're definitely.
Sure.
We've obviously gotten into all kinds of scenarios and disagreements and stuff over the years, but we always like find a way to like cool down and like meet in the middle and figure out what the best way to go forward is. And I don't know, at this point, I feel like it's made us both a lot stronger for having to go through some of the like hardships together. And yeah, at this point,
for sure,
we're pretty
yeah. All the things that you mentioned has happened. Just because we're sitting here together doesn't mean that we haven't gotten in fights. Things have been tense. Friendships been strained. Arguments have happened. But it's like that actually should happen in your most important friendships. Like similar to family. Like it's no one just likes the people that they love. You know what I mean? Like that isn't how life works. So all those things have happened. But we have shared goals, shared values, and we have loyalty to each other straight up. And so because of that, it's like where other people might be willing to cut and run at that moment, the desire to not cut and run has forced us to go through the hard things and then been better friends because of it, So, and then as each step that you get past these hard steps, you grow stronger through them. So that's just how life is. And everyone's so willing to cut and run when obstacles in life appear. And like that's just why society even is the way it is. Like the problems in society are traced back to people's unwillingness to deal with the difficult parts of life. So in something as simple as a friendship and a partnership between two people with shared goals and respect for each other, like go through the hard shit, fight with each other, piss each other off, talk shit, disagree, do all of that. And if you didn't, then like what the fuck, you guys just agreed. You probably held all your cards back at that point and came like as hard as you could have.
Yeah, then people are lying. Then people aren't being honest. Cool. Well, big respect to all of that. Let me know then what you guys got going on now. It's your 5-year anniversary of the shop. You just released a batch yesterday, I believe. That won't be podcast time, but this will be coming out on Monday. What are you guys doing to celebrate the 5 years? What are you guys doing to mark that milestone?
Have dinner tonight.
Yeah. So ideally we would have thrown some big stupid show with like everyone. We were going to do something with just like some of like our like, just main reoccurring contributors, like, Jackson Pratt, Blind Date, like who obviously they played a huge role in the store. Shawnee used to help us out over there. Still is down to help us with anything, comes by all the time. Tyler was my roommate for a long time. These are just like hella reoccurring people, and we wanted to throw some big stupid thing. But the reality is that so a lot of shows can happen at my space, like the warehouse I live in, and we're not the only force that are in here. There's also like punk shows and techno shows and stuff like that. And in December, people threw a show again after a long time. It was like more of a techno, like rave-ish thing. Sorry to say, but a lot of people did get sick in the week after that.
Wow.
We also had thrown a show that weekend, and a lot of people had thrown shows. There was big punk shows. I work at a nightclub, and there was a big show I worked. Like, a lot of stuff was back, and the writing on the wall was that it was too soon. So things are just slowly starting to creep back right now, but we didn't feel comfortable doing something just yet. We will. We used to love. We skipped last year, obviously, but yeah, we've loved to throw the like anniversary parties just because they're like such great opportunities to get our friends together, and like it's great to just have fun like that. We've had some really good ones in the past, but we just it's just we are going to be having live events in 2022. It's like just about time. There's the littlest bit of more caution is necessary, and maybe it's ultra necessary because maybe it proves that it isn't time to come back. But
right.
Mental health is a component of health in itself, and like I was thinking about this at the show that we were at last night, and it's like, sure, there's the risk of people getting sick from attending events together, but there's absolutely the risk of being isolated from these people in these communities that mean so much to you. So it's really unfair to not actually juggle those two risks, because to say that one isn't at risk discounts all of the credit that it deserves. And honestly, it deserves a whole lot of fucking credit, because I saw a lot of people last night at this gig that I could tell just being there meant a whole fucking lot too. So that's important.
Yeah,
for sure.
But we definitely have some things we want to do. We have some things that are like potentially on the table that we're just trying to stay as fluid as possible about, keep an open mind about the potential of them not happening. We've had a couple of shows fall through for different reasons, but we're just going to keep trying until the time is right.
Great. Well, congratulations on that. One thing I like to ask everyone that comes on here is for their top 5 noise releases of all time. And I know you guys are a little bit pressed for time, and there's both you guys. So I'm gonna ask you guys, what are your top 3 noise releases of all time? It's even harder, but I'd like to hear, when it comes to your mind, what are your top 3 noise releases of all time?
I think it's constantly changing for me, honestly. I'd say the Haters' just entire discography, especially like Drunk on Decay, rank really, really highly. Lot of Hospital Things, period, itself ranks really highly. I really Work Death and Jason Krumer also come to mind. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's changing a lot over time. For me personally, I don't know.
It definitely changes over time. I don't really know how to think in terms of like a top 3, but I mean, I guess I can, because I just did think of them. But like Skin Crime Tsunami, or really Skin Crime Desecration, like either of those are just just perfect blends of that like layered sound. 8-Tracks Morgue, Exterminate, which, arguably I'm not even about to get into whether noise is death industrial or electronics or anything like that. Just like, just take the answer. 8-Tracks Morgue, Exterminate, and Purient and Still Wanting.
Cool.
The record changed my fucking life when I heard it, because it was I hadn't heard and the music I listen, or I have listened to my whole life, absolutely shoots for that feeling, and I had never heard it as strongly until I hit play on that one, and I was like, holy fucking shit, dude. And everyone likes to talk about it was good when live at RRR, 2 mics, feedback, I love all that shit, but the poetry, synths.
That was a big one for me too. Yeah.
Fuck yeah, that's the best era. The other shit is great for sure. The shit he's doing is incredible now. But I like that, and it's hard, it's hard to rank something because once you hear something and it like shakes you to the core, it's hard to like think about what comes after or before, but it's like that's the one, like put the headphones on, like the world changes. And even though you said 3, I gotta say the new Blockaders box on Tesco with Feral Confine jamming on that's D&B Escamort, that is absolutely fucking phenomenal. And it's that one I could just listen to on loop forever. Nocturnal Missions, Spirit Flesh, these are good ones. So
cool.
The Black Post Society is probably the one for me, like similar time period.
Yeah,
I definitely remember driving around, delivering pizza to that album, and just like punching my steering wheel and driving around with Matt, listening to it, and being like, "Oh, you like this too?" Like, I don't know. It's a really like early one that stick out for me as being like a favorite that I think I ordered from some metal distro. And
sick.
Brighter Death Now probably also really up there for me.
Sure. Right on.
Brighter Death Now, seeing them live is like they're one of the best things I've ever seen. And no disrespect because I love this show, but one of the more chaotic things I've ever seen. When we booked them here, it was an experience. It was the experience of Brighter Death Now is a set in and of itself. I did see them in Philly where they just straight ripped, and I remember I was like hanging out with Gray Holger in the basement like right before it started, and like almost like didn't fully go all the way up because already was so sucked into the sound from just where we were in this like weird little artist room. It almost like had to like remind myself like, oh shit, I should go watch this set. But like even like, the sound of the set in the other room was already enough to be like, oh.
Awesome. And then you guys run a distro basically. You run a record shop. So can you tell me 3 things each from the last year, new stuff that you've been really stoked about?
Really like, I think we both are really excited by Robert Fuchs, and that stuff's really, really great. Pretty much anything Kyle Flanagan puts his hands on. I mean, I'm going to sound like most of what I've been really excited about has been stuff from close by.
Sure.
But yeah, those 2 things. I really liked that Remorseless Greed comp last year. I thought that was a really, really exciting release. That last Nod album, I guess that's maybe a year and a half ago or something now. That was really, really like such a cool singular vision with a lot of like risk involved in making it. And I don't know, I thought that was really, really, really impressive album.
Definitely. Yeah.
Similar. The Spate Neuter disc is phenomenal. That's one of the best things I had. That's the Robert Fuchs kid as well. That's just I love that disc. I could play that to death. Barn Sour is a project that I've gotten really into. I bought a used collection that had the tape version of the 7-inch, and I had heard the project prior, but that one just like really sucked me in. And the new one on Penultimate Press is incredible. And in similar in terms of like just friends, there's this kid, Jacob Bickers from Richmond, Virginia, does thing Euthanasia Recordings. It's real low key, but it's like some of the best postmortem stuff that you could get your hands on. He's really, really slept on, I think intentionally. The entire city of Richmond is slept on in general. I don't know what it is. I tried to change it a little bit when I lived there, but they got to do it how they do it. Richmond noise scene loves to just keep these gems and like really just like they like obsess over like the best top quality, but then they don't have this like ladder climbing, clout chasing behavior that so many other cities do. So what ends up happening is because that's the norm, you know, people don't hear all this stuff. Like, still, even though he's got his music out to so many people, the Project Coteries, he just like, he is just like one of the best artists in industrial or anything that goes from the industrial tree that I've heard in my whole life, actually. And it's still just such a sleeper that I'm fortunate enough to know how good it is. Chad Davis Subclinic briefly lived in Richmond, Virginia, and I feel like there's this whole effect of him just like giving his like sage wisdom upon these little postmortem kids. They're maybe not so much kids anymore. I'm remembering them in their younger version when I lived there. They're a little older now, but there's just something about that like postmortem death industrial sound from Richmond. Agonal Breathing lives there now, and like the three of them, Bickers, Ficken, and Allison, they have this like weird, just like weird, morbid sound that I don't know. It seems like the type of thing people would really glom onto and really blow up. And there's this other real sleeper project, Xenojoths. I'm maybe pronouncing it incorrectly. I was
going to say that tape is phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's like not quite as like morbid, but it's really strange and cool. Like one of the best things we've had in the store in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
How do you spell it? Or like, what is it?
Xenojothsz. This artist Orion from down there, he is, he books a lot of shows down there and does a lot for Richmond. But he does truly bizarre things on these tapes. Uses sounds that are just ugly in a way that like, I don't want to say clownish or like carnival-ish because that sounds like I'm making a joke out of it, but it's almost like antagonistically weird, and his artwork is very unique and singular, and they're just like, this is all like a little crew, like all the names I just mentioned, they all hang out with each other, they all play shows at this place, Love Jail, and they all just like have these projects together, and I think that this year actually, which is always the case with Richmond, there's apparently forthcoming material from all of these people on various labels. I hope that a lot of it gets out there. And, I hope that, I guess, it's weird to say that I hope more people hear it because I think maybe the exact amount of people that are targeted are hearing it in a way, but it's.
No, it can't be. I think it's also must be an issue of limited distribution and exposure because I think
but as I mentioned, they're so not into the clout chasing aspect of it. They're just like, it's like this.
They don't have to be, but I mean, like, some label should come along and make a CD of 300 copies that can be
it's
heard by
there's this kid down there, Ryan Ament, who put out an incredible tape that he shipped us copies of, and it was like pulling teeth to pay the kid $20 for what we owed the guy for the tapes. It was like he didn't want to take our money at all. It was like, I'm really just trying to pay you right now. And Euthanasia Recordings is a similar thing. Jacob will just send us a big package of stuff that we'll have in the store. We'll try and square up on it, and I don't know, it just doesn't. Eventually we'll send them some stuff in trade, or it's like you ask for the PayPal address and crickets. Like they're just like, what's going on?
Sure.
So.
I think the common thread between a lot of the things that we've both been really excited about, especially in the last couple of years, is people that are like creating their own means of like identity, or like they don't need to go through some other label. Now that the way things function, you can just give things directly and create your own voice really directly. And so I think we've been really excited about anybody that's just like really taken a blank slate, done their own thing, and not relied on anyone else's platform.
Yeah, that's cool. That's how it should be. But I think also at some point then, like, there is an importance to get this voice to a wider audience, because then it stays then in a certain small clump. And I know people like to say it's supposed to be that way or whatever, but I don't really. I
don't even necessarily agree that it should stay limited or anything like that. I just think that it's more interesting when people use the means that they have themselves to do something And I think that by doing it, the means that you have kind of grow and snowball themselves. So I think a lot of these artists will eventually have their voices out there, and they'll have all these things that people can be like, wow, you were doing this limited to 25 tape 10 years ago. And, you know, it might not be instantaneous, but I think that having your own voice will eventually get it maybe into more years because it's this singular, more interesting thing.
There's this weird twofoldness to the concept of the limited ability, because on one hand, if you get things in as many hands as possible, the chances that someone gets it, that it really means something to, increases. On the other hand, on the off chance that something really limited ends up in the right hands, there's a whole thing about your complicated feelings where you feel like they're unique to you and can either be validating or invalidating to learn that they're more widespread. So if there's like something that you connect to and like you really, really hold on to it as like a unique thing, and then you find like a limited to 20 tape that really speaks to it, it bolsters the idea that like this is my personal struggle. Like whereas I personally, when I find out that my personal struggles are shared, it takes a lot of burden off of me. But that is only one mindset, and there are many mindsets out there. So I think that there's definitely something to be said about like you find something, you relate to it, and you know that there aren't a lot of people out there relating to it, and you're like, it is okay because I'm not alone. But at the same time, these feelings are as complicated and as difficult as they feel to me.
I think also like things like that can be so special in the time when everything is really instantaneous and no one has to wait for anything. There's barely ever mystique created around things anymore. And so, you know, finding these things that feel like relics or like they're really, really hidden can still be really special. And I'm not saying that everything should be that way, but it, you know, it still has its place, I think, for sure. And, you know,
for sure,
you're getting something tangible again versus something that's, you know, going to live as a JPEG on a Bandcamp website. I don't know. There's just this difference, you know, and it's all about it.
Absolutely.
That reminded me, just to not be jumping questions here, but on the subject of mystique and anonymity, the project Lovers from here is fucking slaps. So that's definitely something I'm stoked on.
Who is that? Can you say who that is?
No.
No. Okay. All right. Because Dan Reed, that was one of his favorites. And he was like, I don't know who it is. I think it might be Matt.
Who is at gmail.com. That's how we talk to them. That's how anyone can talk to them. I've gotten the tapes. I've put them in. I've hit play. That's what I like. So
I've gotten a package from Lovers in my common space of my living area, like with no postage. So it was like clearly walked over, dropped off by hand. But yeah, that's like what I got. We communicate through the email.
Mm-hmm. Lovers is from New York, but there's very little info in the J cards. It's like really just like you get the name, you get the title, you get the sounds, and then the rest is up to you. So
cool, guys. Well, that was awesome. I really appreciate you guys taking the time.
Yeah, thanks for having me
to chat with me.
Of course. I
know you guys got a busy schedule and you got a lot going on, but I really appreciate it. It was fun to see your faces, and best of luck to you all. And Dead Gods. Long live Dead Gods.
Thank you.
Thanks, Oscar.
Take care, guys.
Thanks again for tuning into White Centipede Noise Podcast. Head over to the Patreon for more, including private episodes of Noise on the Run, exclusive photos, video, and audio related to the show, and discounts at the White Centipede Noise mail order. Your support is extremely appreciated and vital to keep the show going.